What's up with it, people? We back with another one. Back with another one. We 42 days away from the big fight. Errol Spence, Terence Crawford is cracking. So check it out, man. Look, I wanted to talk about man, who's the better mid-range fighter out of the two? Errol Spence or Terence Crawford? Because I think I got an unpopular opinion, and I think Errol Spence can beat Terence Crawford at mid range. And I say that because I've never seen Errol Spence losing a mid range fight ever in his whole career. I've never seen him. Well, I take that back. I seen him losing one mid range fight, and that was against Kell Brook. Kell Brook was giving him a lot of trouble because Kell Brook got a good jab. So he was having trouble the first half of the fight, the first 6 rounds of the fight against Kell Brook. But that was the only time that I've ever seen Errol Spence losing a mid-range type of fight. But on the other hand, you got Terence Crawford. I've seen him losing plenty of mid-range fights against lesser competition than Errol Spence has fought. And so I don't see how a lot of people is saying that Terence Crawford can beat Errol Spence if he decides to box and just don't sit there and exchange with Errol Spence the whole night. I disagree, man. I think Errol Spence can beat Terence Crawford any way he decides that he want to fight the fight. I think the most dangerous way for him to fight Terence Crawford, honestly, is just sitting there exchanging with him. And that's just because Terence Crawford, that plays more into Terence Crawford's hands, because Terence Crawford is a guy that made his whole career, made his whole everything off of punching in between shots. That's the reason why he can lose mid-range fights and still win, because in the midst of y'all fighting in the mid-range, he's going to time you in between one of your combinations and hurt you and get you up out of there. So that can be the case with Errol Spence if Errol Spence decides to sit there and exchange with Terence Crawford. I think he can. I don't think that will work against with Terence Crawford's way of exchanging in the middle of combinations at mid-range with Errol Spence, because I think he'll have more discipline than if he just sitting there and they just going back and forth, back and forth. You know what I mean? Where it's just not even really no type of skill or nothing in it, and y'all just fighting on some Hagler Hearn shit. Me personally, I think that is better suited for Terence Crawford. But I still think Errol Spence can win that fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight at that point. You know what I mean? If they do decide to fight like that, I think it can be anybody's fight. But I think that if Errol Spence can work his way on the inside, he'll dominate Terence Crawford. And I think that if he sit there and use his fundamentals and be smart and fight at mid-range and use the jab like he did with Mikey Garcia, he'll beat Terence Crawford. So, and the reason why I say I just kind of wanted to go through their resumes a little bit just so I can kind of let y'all understand where I'm coming from, where I say Errol Spence has never lost a lot of... Man, listen. He ain't lost no... Look, Danny Garcia. Let's talk about Errol Spence's resume. These is all the fighters that I feel like Errol Spence has actually fought multiple rounds. Like I say, at least half the fight at mid-range. And that's against Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia, Kell Brook, Ugas, Leonard Bundu, Lamont Peterson, and Chris Van Heerden. He fought all them fights with at least 6 rounds being at mid-range, and the only fighter on there that he lost some rounds against was against Kell Brook. So I just don't see how everybody is saying that Terence Crawford can outbox Errol Spence. Like, I don't see it. The only way that he can beat, and I said it a million times and I'm going to say it again. The only way he can beat Errol Spence is if he do what he normally do, and that's time Errol Spence in the middle of one of his combinations and knock him out. That's it. That's it. If he don't get that shit off, he's not beating Errol Spence. And y'all keep telling me in the comments, oh, he gonna outbox him and he gonna be Floyd Mayweather. When has Terence Crawford ever showed you any signs of being anything close to fighting like Floyd Mayweather? Never. Now let's go through his resume and let's talk about all the times that he was getting beat at mid-range against lesser competition. I'm going to start from the top. We're going to talk about Kell Brook. We already know what Kell Brook did to his eye the first 3 rounds before he switched to southpaw and eventually stopped him in the 4th round. So 3 rounds, Kell Brook was up, in my opinion, 3 rounds to 0. You know what I mean? So Kell Brook, Kavaliauskas was up out of maybe 5 rounds. He was up maybe 3-2 or something like that. Dropped him in the 3rd round, I think that was. So he was losing that fight. Amir Khan did good after the 1st round. He dropped Amir Khan in the 1st round. And then Amir Khan was doing good boxing with Terence Crawford. You know what I mean? Terence Crawford was winning the rounds, but he was doing decent. You know what I mean? But we ain't even gonna just exit Amir Khan out. Amir Khan don't count. Terence Crawford pretty much dominated him. Even though I felt like some of them rounds after the 1st round was pretty even, but you will edge them to Crawford. But it is what it is. Jose Benavidez was doing good against Terence Crawford the first 6 rounds of that fight until his leg gave out. You know what I mean? Terence Crawford was having a hard time getting away from the jab, and Benavidez was winning a lot of them exchanges in that fight, fighting at mid-range against Terence Crawford. Then you got Hank Lundy. Hank Lundy was winning some rounds against Terence Crawford. Thomas Delorme was winning some rounds against Terence Crawford. And Gamboa was winning some rounds against Terence Crawford. All these dudes was winning rounds against Terence Crawford fighting at mid-range. Errol Spence has never had fighters win rounds against him fighting at mid-range. He's dominating everybody that he's fighting when he's actually not trying to go inside. I mean, some of them fights that I named on his resume, he was trying to go inside on them, but he still fought multiple rounds in all them fights at mid-range, and nobody could do nothing with him. He was dominating with his jab and, and just doing what he normally do. So, me personally, man, I think Terence Crawford, only way of winning this fight, and a lot of people see it the same way I see it, is he has to knock Errol Spence out. And I think I just don't see him knocking him out. I see the way he can win. I see all that, but I just don't think he can hurt him. So that's the difference in the fight. I believe the fight is Errol Spence can win on the cards because he's more active, he's more disciplined, and he's a great boxer. He's gonna have the jab advantage. You know what I mean? So I think he can win the fight on the cards or accumulation of punishment and possibly stop Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford's style is not built to beat Errol Spence on the cards. It's only built to beat Errol Spence by knockout because that's the way he fights. That's the reason why he was losing a lot of them fights at mid-range, because he's not a great mid-range fighter. A lot of it got to do with him taking chances and things like that. But at the end of the day, before he even get adjusted to their styles and all that and what they want to do, he's losing. Errol Spence don't have that problem. He's never losing against nobody in nothing when he fighting. You know what I mean? He had. I'm not saying he perfect, but what I'm saying is if he decides to fight a mid-range fight, he's gonna beat you and he's gonna dominate you at a mid-range fight. If he decides to fight inside fight, he's gonna beat you and he's gonna dominate you at an inside fight. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know, man. I just see Errol Spence as more of the dominant fighter because he don't struggle no type of style that he decides or whatever approach that he decides to take in a fight. And Terence Crawford has to pull a lot of his so-called tools out the toolbox against lower level guys, and it's like, you shouldn't have to do that. Like, you should go, if you this boxer that everybody think you is, that is about to beat Errol Spence, you shouldn't have to lose rounds against low-level competition like you fighting because you collecting data or you doing this or doing that. You should be able to get in there and establish your dominance and establish your distance and control the fight, no matter who you fighting. You should be able to win that. So that's just my thoughts on it, man. Let me know what y'all think. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the videos, subscribe. I'm gone.